today, Professor Mrs. Madhuvik, to kindly address the audience and share her words of wisdom.
Sir, handle it.
Healthcare was least approach for women. Then there was a shift in looking at more of development-oriented programs rather than welfare. The shift was a rights-based approach, that women's issues are looked upon as that of human right issue and not that of, men. In this entire framework of looking at women empowerment, I would again go back to underscoring the need of playing and putting special emphasis on entrepreneurship development. The micro, small and medium enterprises today have a very important role to play, where women have a very important role to play, and which itself is recognized as a source of innovative ideas, as a nursery for creating entrepreneurship spirit. Important to look at the specific needs of the 36.1 million enterprises which are registered and unregistered in the country. The other, phenomenon, I was looking at one of the recent studies by the World Bank, which says that the low level, along with declining threat of missing gender in the labor force. Although the economic growth has added jobs for both men and women, actual figures in 2012 suggest that approximately 35 to 40 million women are missing from the labor force. Had female labor force participated, then it compares that how many women lost out in the process. This represents a troubling trend with so many youth population over here. The other factor which is very important is the demographic dividend. Now, between 15 and 24 years of age, 50% of the women, in the total figure of 200 million men and women who are yet looked in terms of the youth population, and we need to focus even more our efforts towards making sure that this youth population, and especially the women and the adolescent girls, become. Another thing which is very important for us to understand is that despite this huge opportunity, despite the productive potential of women, despite the fact that there is a gain not just in terms of economic participation, but for breaking the glass ceiling. Just now, Dr. Kapil Sibal, although I think there is a significant trend in terms of women's participation, like engineering. So there is a distinct change happening. The typical gender stereotype which kind of prevented women from looking at sectors other than maybe childcare, maybe teaching, are we happy with the pace of development at which they are changing? There's a lot wanting in terms, and much needs to be done in terms of accelerating the change, which is despite the fact that we have so many microfinance institutions. If you look at figures, the access to credit by formal institutions is very usurious rates, but women find it easier and convenient, but they enter a debt trap. Many of the banks, they would still discriminate against women, because they would feel that women will not have the capacity to. The other barriers which have been talked about, the socio-cultural barriers where, the gender stereotypes in terms of women being ascribed certain gender roles. That of, which adds to not just the double burden, but also the triple burden. The body, where there are 25% to 50% seats reserved for women. These are women who are supposed to be today in a decision-making power. Yet, when it comes to knowledge, so this seems to be one major barrier, that despite representation, we do not have effective representation. The access bottleneck, there is demand, there is supply. Supply in terms of multiple government schemes which are there. I was looking at, I will not name it. We have schemes in the MSME for cluster development, textile industry, science and tech, developing skills, developing. Now we have a new women bank. Women bank, which those who need it most, whether they are able to break the barriers and avail of the opportunities which are there. And this is an area where I feel that people like you and me, can make a difference. You in terms of, making women aware around the director for a while for this organization called the Rashtriya Mahila Kosh. And I realized that in terms of the portfolio, there were only 3 states which were, taking 7.